Group name, it was Nerds.
School nerds.
School Nerds. Okay.
Okay, I'm going to go back a little bit because I didn't start the recording yet this morning, so I just want to pick up what we talked about already, and thank y'all for not reminding me. But anyway,
I was showing you, sir, but you never looked my way.
your way, yeah, okay.
I had my painting on for a long time, and I was like, he's not looking my way.
Oh, well.
I didn't want to interrupt you, sir.
Yeah.
I know
Anyway.
you don't like when we interrupt you.
Oh, who said that? Did nobody say that? I didn't say that. Anyway,
I
so
did.
our lesson today is Introduction to Anatomy and Physiology. We discussed the term anatomy, which is the study of structure. And we also discussed the term physiology, the study of functioning. Know the difference between the two. And then the third one was pathophysiology, the study of how disease affects functioning. You can expect to see all three of those on your assessments. Remember, if it's in red, make sure you have it in your notes.
Okay.
So where we're going next then is the basic unit of human, taking us all the way down to the lowest level. Now, the actually bottom level would be the chemicals and minerals that make us up. But the human level is going to be the human genome, which y'all have heard of as deoxyribonucleic acid or DNA. And I suggest that you be able to spell deoxyribonucleic acid. Sample test question would be, which of the following is the correct spelling for DNA? And you'll be given a choice and you pick the right one. All right, so deoxyribonucleic acid, what is this stuff? Okay. I kind of looking like I got the slides in the wrong order. Let me check these. Okay. All right. Yeah, let's move these into two, change the order of this a little bit. And let's speak from here. All right. The human genome is a collection of genes that make up the human existence or the human body. Now, what is a gene? A gene is a code that tells your body what to do. For example, we refer to them as the codes for life. And there's approximately 25,000 codes that make you. Think of it like a recipe file. If you ever had one of those little boxes that got all the little recipe cards in there, how to make this, how to make that. There you go. How to make your nose. How to make insulin, or telling your body how to make insulin. When to start growing, when to stop growing. All of that comes within your DNA. Predetermined codes for how you are to develop and function. Which parent do you look like? Which parent you look like? You look like mom or dad?
Mom.
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 Dad.
So boys look like their moms, then the girls look like their dads.
Anybody look like their great aunt? Or their uncle? Or their grandmother? Or neither one of your parents? Or nobody in your life? You could look like, and if you went before, if you look like nobody around you, you don't look like your mama, your daddy, your uncle, your aunt, nobody. Not your grandparents. If you go far enough back in your history, looking at people from your family, eventually you're going to come across, oh man, look, there I am. It's there somewhere. I was at my niece's funeral. I was raised by my stepdad, who married my mom when I was 6, 7 months old. So I never knew my dad. My dad was in jail for killing somebody and da, da, da. But anyway, when I went to my niece's funeral, I was in my 40s. And this man walks up to me and he says, Bobby? And I turned around and I knew who that person was immediately. I just turned around like, oh, it's you. It was no doubt that that was my birth father. The resemblance is just too too close. Anyway, so genes can pass over generations, and something that your grandmother had skips over your mother, and boom, you have it. We get two samples of genes, one from mama and one from dad. And these come together in a combination to make you. Like you could have your dad's nose and boom, nothing from your mama, but your mother's attitude. And then your child might get mama's nose because it's there, you just didn't use it. You used this gene instead. You end up having your dad's nose. But your mama's nose is there and can be still passed to your child or grandchild. And this baby, look, she got grandmama nose. Look at that. Oh, she got granddaddy's eyes. She got Uncle Buck's ears. Everybody's got an Uncle Buck. She got Uncle Buck's ears. Look. So it's genes that are there. They weren't used for you, but they can still be passed on to your children. And sometimes these can be genes that are diseased, like cystic fibrosis or sickle cell, that can skip a generation and manifest in a lower generation. So genes are the codes for life. And there are approximately 25,000 genes that make up the human DNA. 25,000 recipe cards to make up you. Now, you're used to seeing DNA represented like this, that twisted helix. But that's the least common form of DNA. DNA only takes this form when it's being packaged and ready to be moved. DNA typically looks like this inside your cells. But that chain would go on for approximately a mile if you were writing it out like this. So on a computer screen, it just comes line after line after line after line after line. If you put it all together, it'd be about a mile long. It's a very, very long strand of information about you. And each genome is separated into genes in there. And as you can see, a gene can be something like just one letter in one spot, telling the body that if you have an A right here, then this is how the body will react. Now, some of our genes have been mapped out. You've heard of them mapping the human genome. Some of them have been mapped out as, okay, well, this is the gene for that. We know what this gene does in people. How do they do that? Because they can read it? No. Because they take samples of DNA from thousands of people and they compare them. For example, let's say that we take 1,000 people who have autism and we compare their DNA and we find that they all have this combination right in that spot, in the same spot in everybody, same combination, then that might be the gene that causes autism. It'd take a little more research, but we may have found the autistic gene. So some of the genes have been mapped out by that method, just comparing DNA of people who have the same conditions and looking to see if they have the same genes or a combination of genes in any particular spot. Some of the genes are believed to do nothing. They can't find a reason for this being there. It doesn't do anything. But remember from last module, the rule of the human body. If you don't use it, you lose it. If that gene wasn't doing anything, it wouldn't be there. It would evolve out of our DNA. So it's either a gene that we don't use anymore that will eventually evolve itself out of there, or maybe it's a new gene that humans haven't started using yet, like the gene that causes autism. Some researchers believe that autism is the next step in our evolution, that eventually all of our brains will function that way, which isn't hard to believe since one of the main issues with autism is their inability to socialize. And we don't socialize anymore, do we? Or we do it a different way. So that is maybe a gene right there that is evolving into something will allow us to use more of our brain power than we actually do today. Now, some genes might simply be like a period in a sentence. This gene stops right here, the next gene starts, boom, and that's your period, letting that you know that this gene has come to an end. We can't read DNA like that. Maybe one day we'll be able to. Excuse me. All right, but you see in here the same repetition of the same of 4 letters, G, A, T, and C, and their combination in there. For example, DNA could be read as, or might be read as, if you have a GC right here, blue eyes. But if you have a CG right there, brown eyes. We can't get that deep into reading DNA of people. Now, there is a website that claims that they can, well, first let's talk about ancestry. Has anybody done this before, sent your DNA to these people and they tell you what part of the world you're from and dot, dot, dot?
Mm-mm. But they seem cool.
Okay.
Mom did.
Let me tell you what you're going to get back from these people. You're going to send your little swab, and they're going to send you back a report that says that you are 10% from here, 70% from over there, 5% from here, 1% from there, 2% from here, and so on. In other words, everybody's from all over the freaking place. Okay. So that's what that's going to kind of read. And it's like, well, wait a minute, then I guess I'm 70% African. Yeah, but you're also 5% Egyptian and 10% this and 1% Italian, 2% Greek. It'll just go all over the place like that. So I don't know that that's useful to folks, y'all. They're not going to tell you that you're from this small village in Scotland and your people all arrived from that small village in Scotland. No, you're going to be all over the freaking world. So that's ancestry. Now the other one, I don't know what this one is called. The ancestry one, there's another one, that's 21andMe or something like that. But anyway, there's another one out there. You don't see them very often. Maybe they have gone out of business or whatever. But if they were saying that if you send them a swab from your cheek, they have 27 medical conditions that they have identified and can tell you whether you have a propensity for these conditions. Things like multiple sclerosis, myasthenia gravis, and the list goes on. 27 things that they say that they can identify in your DNA and tell you if you're going to get cystic fibrosis in your brain. Okay. But what had happened was one of the Ivy League schools, either Harvard, Princeton, one of those, one of their medical schools, they sent the DNA from an entire group, one class, like 60 students. And they all sent them from different addresses and things like that. And guess what? They all got back the same profile. Yeah. Yeah. They all got back the exact, I didn't say close, the exact same profile. So it was a scam. And guys, we just can't read DNA like that. Now, so 25,000 genes in there. A gene can be 1 letter, or it can be 27 letters. Our cells have the ability to read that like a book. So they go in there and they get this right here. Now this cell can go out there in your body and create insulin. So that's the recipe right there. Thank you. So that's the recipe for insulin right there. And if yours is scratched in some way, it's like having that recipe card with gravy dropped on it. You can't read what that says right there. Your body may not be able to produce insulin. Or if your mom passes you this set right there, TC in that area of your DNA, you develop cystic fibrosis in your lifetime. So scratches or mistakes in here can lead to disease in people, abnormal development, something doesn't develop right in you, or just genetic diseases in our life. And that's what we would call a genetic disorder. Something that happened to you because there was a mistake up in here somewhere. Like Down syndrome. It's a mistake in the DNA. And they develop that condition because of that mistake. It's a genetic disorder. Now, if there is a genetic disorder out there that you get from your parents, we would call that then hereditary. So that's the difference between those two. A genetic disorder is any disorder that happens because of your genes. If you inherit that disorder from your parents, it's called hereditary. Now, Down syndrome is genetic, but is not hereditary. You don't get it from your parents. Whereas cystic fibrosis is a genetic disorder that you get from your parents.
So that means somebody in the family has that, right?
That's what?
Just
Cystic fibrosis, yes.
Because my nephew has that.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's an inherited disorder. You get that from your parents. But Down syndrome is not hereditary. It's genetic. It's a problem in their genes, but it's not something you get from your parents.
Okay.
So that's the difference between the two. Genetics are mistakes up in here that just happened to you while you were being created. Hereditary are mistakes in here that you got from your parents. Yet somebody in the family had that same mistake and you got it from them. All right, so that's kind of difference between genetic versus hereditary disorders. Okay, so I want y'all to have this in your notes because this is your homework for tonight. Did I say at the beginning there was no homework for this? I lied. There is homework for this. You poor things. All right. And I want you to research tonight on the internet gene edited baby.
Hey, Mahone,
Yes.
is that like the people that artificially make their baby, like they want to make them with blue eyes or whatever? Like they genetically modify their baby in the embryo?
Yes.
Okay.
So these are the babies that are made like in a petri dish?
No, they're not made.
No?
They,
Well, like not made, but like
I spelled it wrong.
they do all they do everything like before.
They are edited.
Yeah.
Last year, a Chinese scientist claims to have been the first person to ever gene edit a embryo or a zygote. A zygote is when you have the egg and the sperm, they come together into one. That right there is a zygote. Nothing has changed in here. It's still just the information. Nothing has started to grow.
Mm-hmm.
And it's important that it's done at the zygote level, because now these cells will start to create a baby. If you can go in here and take one of these cells in here and edit it some way, then that edit will apply to every cell made after that. If this thing starts to reproduce and create more cells, all of these cells will be part of you. And if you go in here and edit this one, it will only apply to the ones that come out that side now. All the rest will continue in their chain. So if you're going to edit, it has to be done at the very first cell, so that all of these will have the edit and not just one offshoot of them. So a Chinese scientist claims to have gene edited babies for the first time in history. If you go on to your net and just search what I just typed, you'll come up with all types of stories for it. World's first gene edited babies created in China. Claims. In other words, they haven't confirmed it. Chinese researcher who created gene edited babies. You'll see, I mean, it is still a hot topic today. And the program that he used to do it, and why he did it, and what the rest of the world feels about that. That's what I want you to research tonight. Why he did this. How did he do it? And what does the rest of the world feel about that?
What was it? It was why he did it and
Why he did it, what he did, and what the rest of the world feels about it. In other words, do we agree? Does the rest of the world agree with him doing it? Do some doctors out there feel like it was premature? Do some doctors out there feel like, well, it's about time? Do some people out there feel like, well, somebody had to do the first one. Might as well be now, I guess. How do people feel about what he did? What did he do? How did he do it? And how do people feel about that? And that'll be a discussion tomorrow morning. It won't be a turn-in assignment. So get your thoughts straight on it, and we'll discuss it during the first hour of class tomorrow. Gene-edited babies. What was that and why?
But isn't the whole, I'm sorry, it wasn't the whole point of him doing that was to be able to catch diseases and stuff like that?
We'll see.
Like him doing the editing of the babies was to be able to like stop people from having autism and catching all the disorders, right?
No, there's only one condition that he directed the treatment at. Okay. In other words, he was only trying to stop one disease. So again, do that research tonight, and we will see what we come up with tomorrow. All right. So that is the human genome. 25,000 codes that tell the body how to develop properly, how to create certain things. For example, how to create insulin, how to regulate the calcium in your bones versus your blood. How is the heart supposed to develop inside a person, and so on. So all of that is in your DNA. There's also, we said earlier, we mentioned things like attitude. Your personality comes partially from your DNA. How your body handles stress, or how your body doesn't handle stress, are also tied to your DNA. So it's not just the physical characteristics and the physical functioning, it's also the mental functioning of the body, and also coming from our DNA. All right, so that is the genome right there. Now, this package type of DNA, when you How many of y'all have moved from one apartment to another apartment or one house to another house? Just a second, y'all. Give me just a second.
Let me see, just so I can see. We're trying to see who's in there or not.
That's why I wanted to get. All right. Okay. So, how many of y'all have moved from one apartment to another, one house to an apartment, the first thing you had to do was pack up all that shit. Man, y'all, a family of 5, how much shit we had to move all over the freaking country with me going from one assignment to another and then packing behind me with everything we own. Man, that was horrible, y'all. So that's a lot of stuff that has to be packaged. And then the boxes have to be labeled: kids' room, bathroom, kitchen stuff, and so on and so forth. That's what this represents. All those CATCs or GATCs all the way across, all of those packaged into boxes and ready to be moved into a new cell. So when this one cell with all its GATCs in there, when this cell starts to die, all of this needs to be packaged up into boxes that look like, well, that. All the boxes are on here. This gets moved into the new cell and then unpacked into the GATC strand again. So DNA only looks like this when it's being moved from one cell into another. This cell dies off, this one takes over its function. So that's the least common form of DNA, is when it's packaged up like that. And the packaging, the boxes, we call those things chromosomes. So chromosomes are packages of DNA. Then those 23 or 25,000 genes get packed down into 46 boxes or 46 chromosomes. Now, this is the part that we really are having, or they really are having difficulty understanding how this stuff works. Because inside a chromosome, one chromosome could contain eye color, what your nose is going to be like, what kind of attitude you're going to have in your life, all the way down to you have syndactyl, it's an extra toe. So all of this, all added in one chromosome. So we start jacking around with this chromosome, ain't no telling what type of things we're going to change about somebody. Okay. So chromosomes can contain multiple stuff. It's like putting your kitchen and bathroom stuff in the same box and then get there and something missing. So those chromosomes are arranged in 40, or we have 23 pairs of chromosomes. Now I want you to consider this. Why do we have 23 pairs? Mom and dad. Now let's imagine that these two people get married and now they want to move in together. Well, see, mom has a microwave, but dad also has a microwave. Which microwave are we going to use when we get into our new apartment? The new apartment is you. Well, you know what? Let's use dad's microwave. and mom's gets put in storage. You still have it, but you're just not using it. So now you're ready to have a kid. Oh, wait a minute. I've got a microwave in storage over here. I'll just give you that one. And you end up with mom's microwave or mom's eyes from your grandmother rather than your mother. So this is how characteristics of your parents could manifest in your children, even though you don't have them. Okay. Mom could be really good at music. Mom plays the piano. You can't stand the piano. None of that. But whenever you take your kid over mama's house, guess what the kid does? Ding, 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 ding. And then you start hearing patterns. Oh, is he playing a little song? The next thing you know, your kid's playing the piano. Where did that come from? Didn't come from you. You can't stand that crap. It came from grandma because the piano was put in storage. No, I don't want none of that, but it goes straight to your kid. So these are gene or chromosomes that we inherit two of. So remember that mom has a chromosome for eye color. And so does dad. Now remember, or let me rephrase that. Mom had two parents too, didn't she? So mom has two genes for eye color. And dad also has two genes for eye color. What's your eye color going to be? One of these four. You'll inherit one from mom, one from dad, and your body will use this one. You still have this one. So when you have a baby, your baby could get that one, or this one, or one of the two from his dad or mother. And that's how you can have somebody born in your family who has an eye color that doesn't match anybody else. Now, dad's looking at you. Mm-hmm. Ain't nobody in my family got no eyes like that. And ain't nobody in your family got no eyes like that. So where that baby get them eyes from? Mm-hmm. We need to talk. It's like my niece. Girl was born, everybody in my family has brown eyes. Okay? Even the white folks in my family have brown eyes. But this child was born with these funky, gray, children of the corn eyes, man. I just tell her, don't look at me with them eyes, man. You just putting the hex on me or whatever. Where did them eyes come from? Up there somewhere. If we go far enough back in our family or the father's family, go far enough back, you'll find those eyes up there somewhere. It's just nobody used them. They kept going with, oh, and by the way, brown, if you have this one, your eyes will be brown. So if you have, for example, brown and blue in your combination, your eyes will be brown. So all through our generation, they kept passing that brown eye gene. So everybody's got brown eyes. Finally, she got gray and something like green. And that gray was able to manifest in her. So genes pass down from each parent. And that's why we have two of every chromosome. A total of 46 of them. And they are numbered and lettered as the first set will always be letters X and Y. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way down to 22. And on the other side, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's why they look like that. They're all connected. That's why they look like that double ladder. They're all connected like that. So you got one from dad, one from mama. Your body uses this one, so that one remains in storage and can still be passed to your children. This one over here, boom, that's why you got dad's ears. That one's still in storage. You got this one over here, you're as tall as your dad. Mom's a munchkin, and that one's in storage. So you can still pass these on to your children. They just weren't used in you. So we all have two of every chromosome. As a result, humans are referred to as being bisome, because bi means two. So we are bisome. We have two of every chromosome. As a result, we have I don't want to call it a backup, but we have a second set of the same thing that we put in storage, like that extra microwave, and can still be passed on to your kids, even though you didn't use it. But what we're taking away from here is that humans are bisome. We have two of every chromosome. Now, you notice that we did use letters and numbers to indicate the chromosomes. Let's start with the letters, X and Y. These will be attached always across from each other on that ladder. And this combination is known as your gametic chromosomes. These are the sex chromosomes. They determine which sex you're going to be. And they come in two combinations, XX or XY. XX are girls and XY are boys. So it's right at the top of your DNA, and it determines the sex of the offspring with those two combinations. How do those combinations happen? First of all, females, every egg that you produce will be X. That's why the X always appears first. Every chromosome or every egg that comes out of your ovaries will have the X chromosome. And then along comes the male. Some of the sperm will be X, some of the sperm will be Y. The first one that gets there and merges with that X determines the sex of the child. So if the X sperm gets there first, it's going to be a girl. If the Y sperm gets there first, it's going to be a boy. So it's the male who determines the sex of the child. Not through any conscious thought, just that some of the sperm will be X, some will be Y. Females can't make the Y chromosome. Only the males can do that. Poor thing. We can do something y'all can't. Poor babies. But if whichever one gets there first determines the sex of the child. So a sample test question might be, which combination of gametes indicates girl? Which combination indicates boy? XX is girl, XY is boy. Which parent can make the Y chromosome? Only the male. And which parent determines the sex of the child? The male. Know the two combinations, XX girl, XY boy. Know that only the male can make the Y chromosome, and therefore the male determines the sex of the child. And all of that is in the PowerPoint as well. If we go down a little bit further. It's all down there. I do get a little ahead of myself on the drawing, but it's all in there. Okay, so that is why humans are referred to as being bizone. We each have 2 sets of chromosomes, one from mother, one from dad, 2 full sets. And then we determine, based on our arrangement, how they come together, which one actually we will use. All right. 25,000 genes, chromosomes, genes are the code for life. And they are the 2 sets right there. Gametic, the X and the Y. And then the 1 through 22 is somatic. So you're seeing the gametic chromosomes right there, X and Y. And then all the numbered chromosomes, their name is somatic. The gametic and somatic chromosomes. Remember, it is the gametes that determine the sex, X and Y. And also something else important you see here, that any genetic anomalies or disease can only be passed to the children if they happen in the gametic chromosomes. Somatic anomalies cannot be passed to the children, only from the gametes. Now let's kind of try and point that out a little bit. Down syndrome happens at the 21st chromosome. Can that be passed from the parents to the children? Anybody? Shake your head. Yes, no. It cannot. Why not? It happens in the numbered chromosomes. The only thing that can be passed through your children are the ones that happen at the lettered chromosomes, the X and Y. So Turner's syndrome happens at the 18th chromosome. Can that be passed to your children? No. It's in a numbered chromosome. So anything that happens at the numbered chromosomes cannot be passed to your children. It has to happen up here for your children to inherit it from you. Blue-green color blindness happens at the X chromosome. Can that be passed to your children? Yes.
Yes.
Cystic fibrosis also happens at the X chromosome. Hemophilia, blue-green color blindness, cystic fibrosis, all of these happening at the X chromosome. And those are the diseases that can be passed to your children. Anything happening at a numbered chromosome, 21, 18, 15 is Klinefelter syndrome, 5 is Edwards syndrome, and so on. Anytime it happens at a numbered chromosome, it cannot be passed to the children. So that's what that statement is saying, that only genetic anomalies are passed to the children through the gametes and not through the somatics, the numbered chromosomes. So all those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, any mistakes in there, your children will not inherit from you. Down syndrome happening right there, the 21st chromosome. So that is something important information about the gametes versus the somatic chromosomes. You see that in red right there. Recognize that when you see it. Genetic anomalies can only be passed from the parents to the children through the gametic chromosomes. All right, and here is the combination XXXY, and then the father's contribution determines the sex of the child. Now, we said that humans, since we have 2 of every chromosome, what's the term used to describe us? Anybody remember? We have 2 of every chromosomes, therefore we are
Rhizome?
bisome, because bi means 2. Okay. Now, some people will have a problem in their DNA where it will develop and they will be missing a chromosome. If that's the case, then they're not bi then. A word part that means 1 is mono, and they will be monosome. They're missing a chromosome. The only known human monosome condition is called monosome X. When you look at their DNA, there will be an X with nothing across from it. And then the 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, and so on. But at the top, there'll be nothing across from that X. They are monosome. All right. So the only known human monosome condition is monosome X, also called Turner's syndrome. All right, Turner's syndrome. Now, Turner's syndrome only happens to little girls. Why do you think that is? Why do you think Turner's only happens to girls?
Has to do with their genes.
Because they are monosome X. What has to be over here for you to be a boy? Y. Has to be. So if there's no Y present, it's going to be a girl. And since there's nothing over here for them, they will always be girls. They don't have a Y. All right. You may have seen this before, monosome X. If you like NCIS cast, that's the word I'm thinking of. NCIS. Where is she? Images. I can't think of the lady's name. Oh, it's the one with LL Cool J on it.
Mm.
Why aren't they showing that lady? Because they're showing the other one, the one with, there she is finally. This lady right there. Their boss, the little boss. She has Turner syndrome, and that's why she looks the way she does. The stature, the high-pitched voice. If you ever, does anybody know her name? Shoot. Anyway, if you see photos of her right here,
Oh, yeah.
see that she always wears collars.
She's from The Incredibles.
She has surgical scars on her neck because girls with Turner syndrome are always born with this. They have that extra tissue right there at their neck. So what they do is they go in surgically and they cut that down. So they have surgical scars on their neck. So she always wears the collars up like that as soon as they see them. But once you see a baby girl right there in the delivery room that has that extra tissue right there under the ears, that's Turner syndrome right away. All right, some things, low hairline, shield-shaped thorax, widely spaced nipples, shortened metacarpals, so their hands are going to be smaller, small fingernails, characteristic facial features, fold of skin at the neck right there. Their aorta is usually constricted because something squeezes down up here. Poor breast development, elbow deformity, rudimentary ovaries, so they can't have children, anything like that, and then no menstruation. So these are things that you see in everybody that has this, and that's why they call it a syndrome. Everybody who gets it has the same signs and symptoms, so we call that a syndrome. All right, so that is monosome X, the only known human monosome condition. Right, it's a person who's missing a chromosome. All right, now some people will have an extra chromosome. Instead of missing one, they've got an extra one out there. Instead of two, there are three. We call those folks trisome. Tri meaning three. Now, there have been trisome conditions identified with all the chromosomal pairs, from the XY all the way down to 22. They've seen trisome of all of those. Now, let's start with the gametes. That is not, no, XX is more, and Y out there. That is not a gay female or a lesbian. That's not in the DNA. Okay? And that's what people thought back in the day when they would see this, like XXY. Now, this might be a more masculine female because the Y makes the body produce testosterone at a higher level. So this might be a female with male sex characteristics, but is not lesbian. That doesn't come from the DNA. And somebody who is, or a gay male or whatever, excuse me, that would be a male, I'm sorry, that wouldn't be female. When the Y is there, that'll be a girl or a boy. So this is not a gay male. Okay. So the DNA doesn't work that way. However, imagine if you have a recipe file and you go through and one card said add a cup of sugar or half a cup of sugar. So you add that half a cup of sugar. You go to the next card, add a half a cup of sugar. If you do that, the recipe is not going to turn out right. So having too much information is just as bad as missing information. And these people have too much information in their DNA. It confuses the cells and causes all types of anomalies on the body. The most common of the trisome conditions is trisomy 21. And what's the other name for that, trisomy 21? If I remember, we had it a minute ago.
Down syndrome.
Down syndrome. Now, down, it can be down or downs. Either way is correct. You decide which one you prefer. People gave up that debate a long time ago. But Down syndrome, trisomy 21, is the common. So you see that those folks with Down syndrome, the smaller eyes are closer together, the tongue, the lack of creases in the palm of their hand, the lack of this dip underneath their nose right there, all of those things, when you see those, it's Down syndrome. We call it a syndrome because they'll all have the same set of signs or symptoms associated with it. So that's the most common trisomy condition, trisomy 21, also called Down syndrome. So when you look at their DNA, 1, 2, 3, 4, all lined up like it should. But when it gets down to 21, there's an extra 21 out there. Trisomy. And there it is, trisomy 21, the most common. And that's why it's in red. But you also see there's Klinefelter syndrome, Edwards syndrome, and then trisomy 21, Downs syndrome is the most common. Okay, now we need to talk for just a second about those conditions we refer to as being X-linked, which means that they are linked to the X chromosome. And what does that mean? And why is that significant? Okay, if a little girl that's girl, XX, if this chromosome is diseased in some way, then our DNA or our body is smart enough to say that chromosome is diseased, use this one instead. See, girls have two X's. That chromosome is damaged, all right, we'll use this one over here instead. But what about boys? Boys only have one X. So if their X chromosome is diseased, they have no choice but to go on and use it. So X-linked traits are conditions that boys get from their mothers. Because remember, males give the Y if it's a boy. Over here, dad gave an X and mom gave an X and ended up being a girl. Boys can only get X-linked traits from their mothers because from dad, boys get Ys. So I refer to X-linked traits as cooties, things that boys get from girls, because girls have cooties and boys don't. You poor thing. Yeah. Y'all know y'all got cooties. That's why my wife comes home and every time I've been married 38 years. I met my wife in school, by the way, way back when we were both going to school together. Every time my wife comes home and takes her bra off, she starts scratching. Y'all know y'all do because y'all got cooties. Anyway, so X-linked traits, they will be 99.6% of X-linked traits will be boys. So you are very, very rare X-linked trait happening in a girl. What are X-linked traits? Muscular dystrophy. Y'all remember the video last module of the muscular dystrophy video we saw? They were all boys. Hemophilia, the bleeding disease, or the clotting disease where their blood won't clot. It's hemophilia is X-linked. I don't know if if you go back in history, when you think about like the English monarchy, the queen and the king and all that, you go way back in history and you had King Arthur, King Henry, King Louis, and so on. But as you come further into history, what happened to the kings? Queen Anne, Queen Mary, Queen Elizabeth. What happened to all the kings? They had hemophilia, and they died young. Today, Prince Charles and Prince whatever, Prince Harry and all of them, they may have hemophilia. If they do, it's a closely guarded secret. But we also manage hemophilia very well now, and they grow up to adulthood. So pretty soon, the people in England are going to see the first king of England in generations because they're growing up now. They were all dying little back in the day. So hemophilia is another X-linked trait. And so is the most common form of color blindness, the blue-green color blindness, is more common in men. So these are all conditions that boys get from their mamas because they're linked to the X chromosome. And boys only have one X chromosome. Girls will not only not use this, but not pass it on to their offsprings either. Now, you could have a girl with X-linked trait if she gets two diseased X chromosomes. The one from mama was diseased, the one she got from dad was. That's when you might see one of these happening in a girl, but that's only still going to be 0.4% of the time. So rarely will you see an X-linked trait happen in girls like that. All right, so that's X-linked traits, conditions that boys typically inherit from their mothers because they're linked to the X chromosome. And boys only get X chromosomes from mama. All right. Now, the next thing we want to talk about with these genes are that some genes, and I alluded to this earlier, that if you have a brown eye gene, your eyes will be brown, regardless of what the other gene is for. So, for example, if your mom gives you a green eye gene and your dad gives you a brown eye gene, your eyes will be brown. Brown eyes are dominant over all other eye colors, and that is a dominant gene. One gene that's dominant over all others of the same type is the first definition, the dominant gene. And brown eyes are dominant over all other eye colors. So if you have a pronounced brown eye gene in your lineage, almost everybody in your family will have brown eyes. And that's us. We have pronounced brown eye gene, which means everybody in the family is probably going to inherit at least one brown eye gene. And if you do, your eyes will be brown. It's dominant over all others of the same type. So that's the first definition of dominant, a gene that takes precedent over all other genes of the same type. If you have brown eye gene, you will have brown eyes, regardless of what the other gene eye color is. And dominant is also any condition that can be passed by to the parent or to a child from just one gene. In other words, your mom has a cystic fibrosis gene. Your dad doesn't. You can inherit cystic fibrosis from just one parent. It's a dominant condition. But let's talk sickle cell then. Sickle cell is a recessive gene. Means that it requires both parents to pass the disease to the offspring. So in order to have sickle cell, both of your parents have to have the gene. If one of them does, the other one doesn't, you don't get sickle cell. It has to be both. And that's a recessive gene. It requires both parents to pass the condition. Now, we used this last module. I'll go ahead and use it again. We're in a different conversation, but the 4-box square known as unit. And let's do this. Up here is mom, and over here is dad. Okay. Now, neither one of your parents have sickle cell disease, but they do have what we call sickle cell trait, meaning that each parent only has one gene. Now, for sickle cell, remember, in order to have the disease, it requires. Chris, what's going on with your microphone? Pay attention to it. All right. For example,
No, it's not me. Mine's off.
Yeah, somebody. Well, I just turned yours off. Okay. Y'all pay attention to your microphones. Okay. Mom has a bad gene for sickle cell, and the other gene is a normal gene. Dad has the same combination. So both your parents have sickle cell trait. But what happens when they get together to have a baby? If dad contributes a bad gene and mom contributes her bad gene, this child will have sickle cell disease. If mom contributes the bad gene and dad gives the good gene, they'll have sickle cell trait just like the parents. Same over here. Mom gives the good gene, dad gives the bad gene, they have sickle cell trait just like the parents. If both parents contribute the good gene, then the child has no sign of the disease at all. So that's how recessive genes work. You have to contribute two bad genes in order to have sickle cell disease. So even when the parents both have sickle cell trait, there's a 50% chance the child will have the same sickle cell trait as the parents. There's a 25% chance the child will have no signs of condition at all. And a 25% chance that the child will have sickle cell disease. So that's what I mean when we say it requires two genes for the person to have the disease. If you get only one, it's not going to cut it. You have the trait just like the parents. So sickle cell is a condition that is caused by a recessive gene, requiring two genes for you to have the condition. Not so with dominant genes. One gene can pass the disease. Recessive requires both parents to pass before the child will have the disease. So know the difference. Know both definitions for dominant, and know the difference between dominant and recessive conditions. Dominant, one gene; recessive, two genes, or both. All right. So that's dominant and recessive genes. And there's your homework assignment. Go ahead and research gene-edited babies. Don't get too detailed in your description. You don't have to go into, well, he took this gene and mixed it with that gene. Just why he did it. Why did he do that? What did he do? What disease was his editing targeted at? What was his purpose? What disease was he trying to eradicate in these children?
You want us to send that in to you?
No, we'll just talk about it tomorrow.
Okay.
What disease was he targeting this treatment at? Number two, how did he do it? And number three, what are the opinion of the world that he did it? And then what is your opinion? Good, bad, or indifferent? Good that he did it, bad that he did it? Should we have waited? Were we ready for this type of treatments yet? Or this type of science yet? Is science ready for this yet? And let me wet your whistle a little bit. What he did was, I won't give you the whole story, but what he did was this. He deleted a gene from their DNA. And by doing that, the child probably won't get a specific disease. What disease is it? How did he do that? And what are the opinions out there about him doing it? I just spelled that wrong. What are the opinions out there about him doing it? So he literally went in and took out a gene, deleted a gene from their DNA. And to wet the conversation a little further, remember what we said about the human body? If you don't use it, you lose it. That gene was there for a reason. And he deleted it. What consequences could that have? All right, so anyway, that is your homework for this evening. Remember, you don't have to type anything out or write anything up or send me anything. Just be ready to discuss it tomorrow. All right, and that is genes. And some, before we go into the next section, let's go back, review, then we'll take a short break and then get into the next section. Anatomy, the study of structure. Physiology, the study of functioning. Pathophysiology, the study of how disease affects functioning. Get used to recognizing that word part, patho. It always means disease. Anytime it's in a word, it's going to mean disease. Patho. The human genome, know that DNA, be able to spell that. Know that humans have 46 chromosomes. And we are bisome. What that means, we have 2 of every chromosome. A sample test question there would be, because humans have 2 of every chromosome, we are known as being bisome. Know the difference between gametic and somatic chromosomes? The gametics are the XY, and that genetic anomalies are passed through the gametic chromosomes, but not through the somatics, the 1 through 22. And if you remember Down syndromes, 21 cannot be inherited from the parents. The gametes or somatics. Know that the combination for the 2, they're not in red, but I'm going to change them right now because they should be. XX is girl, XY is boy. And that the father determines the sex of the child. Know that monosome means that you're missing a chromosome, and that monosome X is the only known human monosome condition. Know that trisome is the most common, or excuse me, Down syndrome is the most common trisome condition.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
This is Julie.
Hi.
She is going to be working with D and student retention.
Okay. All right, so trisomy 21, Down syndrome is the most common of the trisomy conditions. Be able to discern the difference between dominant and recessive genes. Know both definitions for dominant. Dominant over all others of the same type requires 1 gene to pass to the offspring. Recessive requires 2 genes or both parents. Right. And from there, we'll be going into some developmental disorders when we come back from break. So let's take a break. It is 10:35. Come back at 10 till. Gives us 15 minutes. I'm looking for Jennifer Green. Oh, there you are. Elena, good. Davion Henley.
Here.
Gotcha. Isaac is here. Jaime is here. Linda Lopez, there you are. Melissa is here. Tatiana is here. Maria Martinez is here. Chloe McDaniel. Chloe, you here? Chloe, going once, going twice. Don't see Chloe. Vanessa, are you here? Yes, I see you. Selena Puente. Selena, looking. There you are. I got you. Latasha Reed. There you are. Sarah is here. Alma Segovia. Alma, I see you. Esther is here. Where's Esther? I thought I saw Esther this morning. Oh, yes, she is. Crystal Trevino. Crystal. I see you. And Savannah. Where's Savannah? I see you. All right.
Mr. Mahone, you
Yes.
called me.
Yes, I got you.
Okay.
The only person I have marked absent right now is Chloe McDaniel. It's Chloe. Okay. Everybody else is here. All right, cool. Okay, so get back to my seeing glasses. All right. So you know what's exciting about this module? The next 3 weeks? Mr. Mahone's birthday is happening in the next 3 weeks. Yeah. I'll get to be around for my birthday. I'm just putting that out there now. I don't expect any like major gifts or anything, but I'm just kind of putting that out there. I'll be 57 years old. I know I don't look that old. Do I?
He's throwing hints.
Never.
All right. Your grade could be based on that answer. All right. So anyway, we have been talking about things that can happen to you when the union is made, man. When you first come together, some problems that could happen in the DNA, the code that actually makes. Now, there are other conditions that can happen as, you know, in children, babies, zygotes, embryos, whatever you want to refer to them as while they're in the womb. And one of them is the developmental disorder. This is something that where your DNA was correct. There were no problems in the DNA at all, except while you were developing in the womb, something wasn't made correctly. And it sometimes has to do with positioning in the womb. And you end up with something like a club foot, a foot that turns inward at the side like that. We mentioned this last module that King Tut, they finally were able to do an MRI of the King Tut mummy and find out that King Tut had a club foot. He walked with a cane for his entire life. He was born that way. And the actual term for that is talipes or club foot. Now, another example would be, and we use both of these last module as well, spina bifida, an opening at the back of the spinal column like that, allowing the meninges, the covering of our spinal cord to stick out. And sometimes the spinal cord itself actually sticks up into this bubble as well, causing problems with the nerves heading down to the legs. Now, those are both developmental disorders. Now, let me tell you where healthcare sometimes tries to confuse the rest of the world, okay? And it even does so in your textbook. At one point in your textbook, and I did point this out last module, if y'all remember, they grouped two conditions together. Developmental, along with the second condition, which we'll be talking about in a minute, called congenital. And anytime somebody's born with something, the doctor might refer to it as being congenital. Okay. Now, congenital has a definition all of its own, and that's something that happens to you while you're being born. Congenital. Developmental, things that you're born with. Congenital, something that happens to you during the birth process. And where does healthcare try to confuse people? Okay. When the doctor says your baby was born with a congenital heart disease, heart condition, does that mean that that heart condition developed during the birth process? No. It's a developmental disorder. Something wasn't made right. And why do I say try to confuse? If your baby is born with a condition like cerebral palsy, your doctor might try to put that in the same category as a cleft lip. Oh yeah, your baby was born with cerebral. Well, doctor, why was my baby born with cerebral palsy? Oh, it's one of those things, like cleft lip or spina bifida, something that they're born with. That's not true. I'm sorry. Cerebral palsy happens during the birth process. And sometimes it's a mistake made by somebody. You see the confusion here? They're trying to cloud it. Doctor, why was my baby born with cerebral palsy? Oh, it's just one of those things. It's kind of like a cleft lip. No, it's not. Cleft lip and cerebral palsy should not be in the same category. And unfortunately, the textbook that we use does put those two in the same category. Like cleft lip or cerebral palsy. No, they do not go in the same category. It's a way a doctor can hide their mistake. You see, your baby was breech birth. They had a head, butt or leg presentation rather than a head. And the doctor took too long to get the C-section kit. And as a result, the oxygen was cut off to the baby's brain and the baby had a stroke in utero. That's cerebral palsy. It was a mistake. Now, don't get me wrong, not all cases of cerebral palsy are mistakes, but there's something that went wrong during the birth process. For example, the placenta can pull away from the uterine wall prematurely and cut off oxygen to the baby's brain as well. There's nothing the doctor can do about that. It's called placenta previa, and it just happens. So cerebral palsy can either be one of those things that happened while the baby was being born, just a process that we couldn't stop, or it could also be caused by a mistake made by the doctor. So when a baby is born with cerebral palsy, we need to be questioning that doctor instead of hiding behind terminology. And they hide behind terminology by saying, oh, it's like cleft palate, one of those things that happens. And no, it's not. Too often we use the word congenital, we overuse that word. And we have people out there believing that congenital is anything a baby's born with, like congenital heart disease. That's not true. It's a developmental heart disease. So they're trying to hide behind terminology. And if a doctor says cerebral palsy to you, you need to be asking how that happened. And I don't want to hear a simple explanation about it. It's just like this. No. How did my baby get cerebral palsy? What cut off oxygen to my baby's brain? And I take this kind of a little personally because my youngest daughter has cerebral palsy, Kristen. Again, it's just one of those things that doctors make mistakes sometimes and they try to hide behind. And the most common congenital disorder is cerebral palsy. That's why I put that on the test, because it's near and dear to my heart. The most common congenital disorder is cerebral palsy. All right. So we've talked then about the difference between a developmental disorder and a congenital disorder. Developmental are things that happen to you while the baby's being made inside the womb. You are drinking alcohol while you're pregnant, and the baby's born with low birth weight. That's developmental. Anything that happens during the pregnancy. If it specifically happens while the baby's being born, that's congenital. And they can be mistakes, and sometimes they can just be things that just went wrong, but they can also be a mistake made by somebody. Right? All right, so that's the difference between a developmental disorder and a congenital disorder. So we talked about the three big categories of disorders: genetic, developmental, and congenital. There are others that we'll discuss, like environmental disorders and that type of stuff. We'll discuss later on in the course. Okay? But those are the three big ones: genetic disorders, developmental disorders, and congenital disorders. All right. And how many of y'all have ever known somebody with cerebral palsy? Okay, now cerebral palsy can be well involved, like this young lady, or only minor involvement. And my daughter Kristen has minor involvement. You would have to look real close at her to even determine that she does have cerebral palsy. But it is one of those things that does happen. Okay? It can lead to, and again, it depends on how long the oxygen was cut off to their brain. It can lead to varying levels of mental retardation or mild functioning in their physical abilities. And Kristen is, she has physical manifestations. She doesn't have any mental retardation. So that is the most common congenital disorder, cerebral palsy. There are others like Erb's palsy. When the baby's born, one of the nurses or something might have grabbed the baby and held the baby up by their arm, causing nerve damage to happen in the arm, in the nerves passing through the armpit. That's Erb's palsy, E-R-B, Erb's palsy, right through the armpit right there. Also called crutch palsy. People sometimes damage those nerves when they lean on their crutches, if you've ever seen somebody do that. And it'll be important for y'all as PCTs and medical assistants. One of your jobs is teaching people how to use crutches and not to lean on those crutches like, if they're holding them up or something. That causes nerve damage in the armpits. So Erb's palsy and crutch palsy are the same condition. But I saw a video of a nurse delivering a baby, or the delivery team delivering the baby. Doctor passed the baby to the nurse by their arm like this. See, we just get too complacent sometimes, grabbing a baby by their arm, and this is how you're going to pass a baby and causing Erb's palsy in the armpit like that. So it's another example of a congenital disorder, something that happened while they were being born. All right, and again, cerebral palsy is the most common. Okay, so the next thing we want to talk about then are, how does this happen to people? I wonder, how are people born in little twos like that? I don't care what nobody say, y'all. I was bad enough. I couldn't imagine if there were two of me in the freaking world. Right. My mom would have been like, "Bro, hell, my parents couldn't handle me. Imagine two of me." But anyway, how does that happen? Well, you have one egg ovulated by mama, one sperm, which then penetrates and fertilizes that egg. And after that fertilization, that egg, for some reason, splits into two. Now, these are two exact copies of that egg. So you have one person who is now two people. And that's why they are identical. They were the same person at one point. And why it splits into two like that, we don't know, but it does run in families. And it usually runs up the female side of the family. For example, this is you, lady, to your mom, grandmother, aunts. You got any twins in there anywhere, and your chance of having twins are increased. Going all the way up to great grandmother and so on. But always follow the females. If there are any males in here, then it cuts off the connection. So for example, if you go up your father's side, there's dad, and dad's sister over here has twins, dad breaks the link right there. So if there are any males in this link, it breaks the link to you. So follow the female side of the family, mother, grandmother, great-grandmother, any aunts that are in here, any female cousins that are all in here. As long as there's no male in between the links, it does translate to your increased risk of, not risk, but your increased chance of having twins. Is anybody an identical twin? Anybody? No twins in here? All right. Well, they are identical because they were the same person at one point. Now, mom and dad can, mostly mom, can look at them and tell the difference, especially as they get older and start developing little scars on the face and that type of stuff. One of them raises their eyebrow, one and the other one. One of them got into football and the other one didn't, and developed more musculature than the other one. And you can start to tell as they get older because they're only born the same person. Once they're born, they start to diverge and become their own people or own person, if you will. Now, there's one way to scientifically tell them apart. Does anybody know how we tell twins apart science-wise? And it's not their DNA because their DNA.
You mark them.
Huh?
You mark them when they're born.
Mark
Not mark them. You tag them or something, right?
We're gonna tattoo one of them. No. Yep. And it's not their DNA because their DNA is identical. So if we look at the DNA, we wouldn't be able to tell which twin the DNA came from. There's another way.
Bigger than the other. Like
Their fingerprints. And only on these two fingers. The rest will be identical. But on their second digits, which y'all might call the pointer finger, one of the twins will have an extra swirl on their fingerprint, just on those two fingers. Now, I don't know about anybody else, but to me, it sounded like that was planned that way. That somebody somewhere asked the question during a meeting or something, hey, what happens if we get two of them that look exactly alike? You know, because these eggs could split every now and then. Oh, okay. Well, let's engineer them so that one of them will have an extra swirl on their finger. Why else would that happen? And it's on all sets of twins, just these two fingers.
Even on fraternal twins?
No, fraternal twins is a little bit different.
Okay.
Just identical twins, but just on those two fingers. Why would that evolve like that?
That is weird.
Sounds like a special marker that happens with twins. And that just sounds like it was planned. Now, I don't know who made us, whether it was God, whether it was aliens, whether it was other versions of us out there in the universe somewhere. But there is too much evidence that the human body was actually engineered, that it didn't just evolve into what we are today. And as we go through class, we'll talk about more examples of the evolvement of the human body and the engineered, what appears to be engineered in us. All right, so anyway, fingerprints is the way we tell them apart. Okay, now if you're females, remember, and you're a twin, there's a real good chance you'll have twins, but not boys. Okay, so that is your fraternal or your identical twins. They were the same person at one point. And remember too, what happens if one of them commits a crime and they find their DNA at the scene? How do you prove which one of them did the crime? You can't. You have to look for other means. And that's actually a first year law school. They have to write a paper on that. The first year law students have to write a paper on a case where DNA was found at the scene. They found out that the DNA actually matches two people. And neither one of the people has an alibi. And there is no other evidence. What do? What they want them to come to the conclusion is that they have to let both people go. You can't punish it's worse to let a guilty man go free than it is to punish an innocent man. So that's a first year law degree thing they're trying to get them to come to the conclusion of. So anyway, if their DNA is identical, you can't tell the difference between the two. But we're the same person at one point. All right. Now, sometimes when identical eggs split, it doesn't split completely. And you end up with something like that. And the splitting never happens completely. And they grow into people, still connected like that, full-grown folks. And the best example of them are yin and yang. They were Siamese, hence the term Siamese twins. They aren't the first one that this happened to, but they're the most famous. They're part of the Barnum and Bailey's, Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey circus. They had them dressed in a special made suit that made them look like two-headed man. But the truth is they both had 4 arms or 2 arms. This guy's arm is around behind him and his arm is around behind him. So they both had 2 arms and 2 legs. But you can actually see the other guy's hand down here. But Barnum, you know, a sucker born every minute, made a suit specifically that hid their other arm and had them standing in, like each one was in one pant leg with 1 shoe on both feet to make them look like they had just had 2 heads. Build them as the two-headed man. But actually, they were Siamese twins. They were joined by a band of tissue right there at the abdomen. And that's all that joined them. Today, they would have been separated at birth. They didn't have the technology back then. They couldn't even scan what was inside here. And turns out it was just 1 artery and 1 vein going between the 2 of them. They could have cut those on the day they were born. But instead, they lived their entire life 18 inches from each other. And these 2 guys did not like each other. Really? I saw a story about them. One of them was a teetotaler, and the other one was a foul-mouthed drunkard. They actually got into fist fights, if you can imagine that. Yeah, punching each other, cussing each other out, the whole 9 yards. And they were married, both of them. They married twin sisters. The sisters weren't conjoined, but they were, you know, twins. And they had 12 children between them, between the 2 of them. How'd they work that out? I don't know. Now, since the sisters were twins, they all could have just fallen in bed together and whatever happens, happens. I mean, it doesn't really matter because they're twins. Anyway, so they had 12 kids, killed 12 kids between them, between the 2 of them. And they were wealthy when they died, you know, traveling all over the world as the two-headed man. And they died within just a couple of hours of each other. That died during the sleep. One of them died, and then the other one, through that artery and vein, was pumping blood back and forth between the 2 bodies. And they overwhelmed the heart, and then the second one died. So they died within just a couple of hours of each other. So that is the most famous set of conjoined twins. We see them all the time, joined at all different parts of the body. Another famous set from way back in the day was a twin girls. They were called the Nightingale twins. And they were released from slavery because their popularity, they became so popular. One of them played the guitar and the other one sang. And they performed all over the world for the queens and monarchs and all this stuff everywhere. Because it was a really, not just one of them sang, she really, really sang. I mean, like, I don't know, Whitney Houston type singing. But anyway, and they were born into slavery. And they were released because they could travel all over the world. So they were given their freedom. So anyway, that is the Nightingale twins. Some people or some children are born conjoined at the head, which means inside their brains are joined. Very, very difficult to separate them, by the way. You know it's going to cause some brain damage, and one of them may not survive at all. That is craniopagus parasiticus, right there. Babies that are conjoined, born conjoined at the head like that.
Are those rare?
I wouldn't call it common, but rare is not necessarily the word either, okay? Because it does happen. See, so there are enough pictures of it in here showing that. I don't know if you can necessarily call it rare, but is it common? Neither word would fit. And of course, separating these two is going to cause some major issues with brain injuries and the brain functioning properly. So anyway, that is probably the most famous case of this was an Indian prince, not Native American Indian, but Indian prince from the 1300s. Who lived and was canonized, and the people would come and pray to the kid and all that. And he lived to be like 12 years old, and he died from a snake bite. So it's not the joining is not what killed him. No, that's craniopagus parasiticus when they're joined at the head. All examples of conjoined twins. And you saw the Nightingale twins were joined at the backside. These guys were joined at the side. People are sometimes joined at the head. All right, and that's conjoined twins. Whether we can separate them or not is determined by the amount of joining. Is there one body that is dependent on the other? For example, was this guy born without a liver and they're both sharing a liver? That determines whether or not we can separate them. And then fraternal twins. Now, what happens with these folks is that instead of one egg splitting into two, this is a lady who ovulated 2 eggs at once. And since men produce 300 to 500 million sperm on every ejaculation, by the way. Y'all get 1 egg. Deal with it. 300 to 500 million. What? All right. Now, if there are 2 eggs present, what are the chances of both those eggs being fertilized by 2 separate sperm? That's fraternal twins. Now, and it also runs the same way up the female side of family. So follow up mother, grandmother, great grandmother, aunts, cousins, all on that side, and it translates to you. So they will look no different than any other brother and sister, or no more alike than any other brother or sister. And it can be a boy, girl, 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 boy, boy, whatever, any combination. Remember that fraternal twins will always be or identical twins will always be the same sex because they were the same person at one point. But this can be any combination of boys, girls.
I have a boy and a girl one.
Look any more alike than any other brothers. Now, can they be fertilized by 2 separate men?
Yes.
Yes, they can. Okay. But that takes some type of hoochieism going on there. This is not somebody, well, I guess the egg is viable for about 72 hours. So I guess you could have sex with this man this day, tomorrow have sex with that man and get 2 separate eggs fertilized. I do find it hard to believe you're going to tell me that there were 300 to 500 million sperm present and only one of those eggs was fertilized? Could it happen? Yes. Is it probable? Nah. Okay, why just this one? And what did the other 499 million sperm do? Just say, never mind? But, you know, I kind of believe that you had sex with both these guys at the same time. That's why I call it hoochieism. But anyway, does it happen? Yes. Does it happen a lot? No. This is this kind of stuff you see on Maury and Okay. So anyway, but it can happen. Okay. So that is your fraternal twins. The only thing they shared was a womb and a birth date. Everything else is no more alike than any other brother or sister. All right. So now let's talk about this lady right here. Another story for y'all. Her name is Lydia Fairchild. She lived in California. I think it was LA, don't quote me on that, but somewhere out there in California. And she had two children. Or excuse me, these two. She had two children by the same man. And they broke up, and she went to the state to apply for state assistance, welfare. And she filled out the applications, and they do DNA testing as part of the application process on the mother and the babies and the children. And so she's at home waiting for her welfare to start. But they called her and told her she needed to come back down to the office, so she did. Good thing she didn't take the children with her this trip, because they took her in the back and they started saying they're going to charge her with welfare fraud because the children's DNA did not match hers. And that's just not possible, is it? Is it possible to have a child whose DNA doesn't match yours?
Mm-hmm.
No, it's not. It's not. The child will match your DNA. That's all there is to it. So what was happening then? Because she had these babies. The court record or the hospital records say the babies came right out of her. So how could their DNA not match hers? It did match hers, except she has two DNA types in her body. And they were matching, and they were not matching one type of DNA. She has two distinct types of DNA. How'd that happen in her? Fraternal twins. Two eggs fertilized by separate sperm. And for some reason, and we don't know why, those two eggs joined into one. So they were two people at one point, and they joined into one person. So she has DNA from two different people, her and her brother or sister, joined together. So when they were checking her DNA against the children's, they were checking that one. But the children are actually a match for this one right here. So they were saying these are not your children because their DNA doesn't match. It's real close. I mean, real close. Like these are your sister's kids or your brother's kids, but they're not yours because it doesn't match exactly. They were checking the wrong DNA. And it took them 4 years before they actually found the correct DNA inside her. Now, what broke the case was they were in court, y'all, and they were losing miserably. I mean, they were bringing in all these DNA experts who were saying it's not possible, and it's not possible. But the scenario that they weren't thinking about is that there might be somebody out there with two DNA types. And what had happened was there was, at the same time that she was in court going through this, the New England Journal of Medicine published an article on a lady named Karen Keegan, who lived in London and needed a kidney transplant. So they were checking amongst the family to see if anybody would match her for a kidney transplant. And they found out that her children's DNA didn't match hers. And that just so, think about the timing right there. That article was published while Lydia Fairchild was in court fighting the same thing. But they didn't know it at the time. So one of the prosecuting attorneys is the one who actually saw the article and actually slipped it to her defense attorney, which is very unethical, by the way, but slipped the just a little note to her defense attorney, who went in, saw the article, and said, hey, maybe this is what we're dealing with here. The other thing that was fortuitous or in Lydia's favor was that she was pregnant with that kid at the time and was due to be artificially induced on Monday. So the judge said, okay, we'll take a recess and we will have a representative of the court present in the delivery room. And we'll watch this baby be born and then check their DNAs right away. And his DNA did not match. And they thought, what the hell is going on? Well, it turns out that in Lydia, the second DNA right here is only in one tissue of her entire body, and that is her ovaries. So this is Lydia. The only thing she got from her twin was the ovaries. So they were checking her saliva, her hair, her blood, all of those had this DNA. It wasn't until they got around to checking her ovaries that they found the second DNA. And it took them 4 years to actually get around to that, science-wise. Science creeps along, guys. Science never runs. It creeps. So going around checking all these different tissues, and finally, they got around to the ovaries and found the second DNA. So people who have two different types of DNA, there's a name for them. We call them chimera. And the condition is chimerism. Chimera is a Greek word for two animals that are jammed together, like a human with the head of a bird. You see that in Egyptian myths all the time. The human horse, the human with the head of a bird, or a lion with a snake's tail. Those are chimera, two animals jammed together. So Lydia Fairchild had chimerism. Now, it just so happens that in Lydia's case, they were both females, and they both had the same skin complexion. What happens if you jam together two people that are different, like a male and female? Hermaphrodite, which is also Greek. The Greeks had, in Greek myths, they had all types of gods. I think they had something like 7 gods of death. So the Greeks had all kinds of gods. And whenever two gods would get together in mythology and have a child, the baby would be named a combination of the parents' names. So in this case, Hermes and Aphrodite had a baby together. Now, Aphrodite was the Greek goddess of love and beauty and So Zeus, the king of the gods, he lusted after Aphrodite for himself. And when she got with Hermes, Zeus was jealous. So he cursed their child with both sexes. And that is the Greek explanation for hermaphrodism. And so you can see people have been trying to explain this ever since the Greek days. With the ancient Greeks have been trying to explain what hermaphrodism is. So it's been happening all along, as long as people have been people. But now, what happens when they are both sexes like that? Number one, there is no both sexes. Okay? You are neither sex. We all start with the same genitalia. It actually looks something like this. And if testosterone is present in high levels in the body, in other words, if you got that Y attached on there, your body's going to start producing more testosterone right away. As testosterone is produced in the body, you're going to develop, instead of ovaries, you're going to develop testes. And guess what? They develop in the same place in the body, right up there in the abdomen. And they're about the same size too. But as they start to develop into testes, they get pushed out of the body and they end up right there. And the scrotum develops. So boys, are both parents, don't get too concerned when your baby boy is born and there are no testes in the scrotum. The scrotum is there, but there's no testes in there. They haven't descended yet. They'll come out shortly after birth. But what else happens when you have high testosterone levels? This part right here starts to grow. And you see what happens?
Mr. Mahone.
There you go. Yes.
So are her children born with the same DNA?
Whose children? Lydia's?
Yes.
No, not at all. They're born with the DNA of the twin that her body absorbed while they were in the womb. So it's like she had her twin sister's kids because she had her twin sister's ovaries. Okay. Now,
that's what I told my sister.
Huh?
That's what I told my sister, because she was a twin, and I said she ate her, and then she had a baby, and I was like, that's your sister that you ate in the womb, your daughter.
Yeah, could be. Check the DNA, see if it matches. All right. Now, if testosterone is not present at high levels, in other words, you have the XX thing going on. You won't develop testes, obviously, so this will not develop into a scrotum. Instead, so the scrotum and the labia are the same tissue. Labia majora, labia minora with the vaginal at all. And that's the part that we call the clitoris. Now, the bad news for men is that when that tissue grows, you have a certain amount of nerve endings in there. Now, when that tissue grows, you don't get more nerve endings. The ones that are in there get spread out. So you see what happens, highly concentrated nerve versus dispersed nerve endings. And that's why the clitoris is way more sensitive than the penis, because the nerve endings are still compact in there. Sorry, guys, we get 300 million sperm, they get more sensitivity. Deal with it. But anyway, so somebody who is hermaphrodite, that's what you get. It doesn't develop one direction or the other. And that's what they mean when they say they are between sexes. Now, since we cannot create a penis, but they can create labia and they can hollow out a vaginal canal. So parents almost always opt for female when they're born hermaphrodite because we cannot stimulate that to grow up into a penis. Maybe they will one day, and these parents will get to make a choice, but they're almost always going to opt for female because we can't make a penis. All right, isn't that cool? We can make a vagina, but we can't make a penis. What? Yeah, don't be hating. Little penis going on. Yeah, I understand. All right, so anyway. All right, we can make women, but we can't make men. Anyway, so that is hermaphrodism. They are usually between sexes. Now, a doctor can sometimes, when you're in the womb, before early development of the genitalia, the doctor might be able to tell which is whether you're going to be male or female based on the angle of the protuberance. But typically, they have to wait until the penis is developed enough to see it on a scan before they can tell whether you're male or female. All right. So now Lydia Fairchild just happened to be two females, so no issues there with the genitalia, and happened to have the same skin tone. What would happen if the two fraternal twins? What happened if one of them was light skinned and the other one was dark skinned? Would you be able to
They'll
see?
have both skin tones, won't they?
Yes. And it has happened often enough that each skin tone actually has names. Remember, guys, we don't bother to give something a name until it happens enough times. But so this has happened enough that they actually give them names for each one and have categorized them. I had a client who had that one. Yeah, I was doing an EKG on this guy, and he had checkerboard pattern, just like that. So, and probably the most famous recent case is the Waco baby. Was born in, I don't know, 2015. I can't remember what year. Let me see if I just bring it up. If they just, let me just search that. No. All right, let's try something else. That still didn't come up.
Click all.
Click what?
All.
No, I don't want to see the ads. I just want to see a picture of the baby.
Well, you might find the baby like in a newspaper.
Oh, okay. It says pictures of hermaphrodites and famous. Yeah, see, I don't get into all that. All right, but anyway. Now, you know what these are? These are males. Yeah, these are males. All right, so now, the Waco baby was a black baby, but when they took off the torso, there was a one straight line straight down the middle of the body, so straight you could almost draw it with a ruler. And this baby was black on one side and white on the other. And I'm not going to say white, but light skin on the other. Now, we're used to being like, you know, seeing people who are the same skin tone as their brothers and sisters, but not always. There was this one family in our neighborhood, you know, there was seven kids, three older, three younger, and then one right in the middle. And the girl in the middle was Zena. That was my little flame, you know, my little girl. We was kids, but you know, my girl, right? But anyway, she was my complexion, But the other 6 brothers and sisters were what we call, in our neighborhood, we used to call it blue black or purple, Africa black, okay? But dark skin. And she was right in the middle at my complexion. So, brothers and sisters don't always have to be the same complexion. So that what could happen if they were chimeric in the skin, having 2 different skin tones manifesting through their skin like that. All right, and that is chimerism.
I have a question.
Yes.
Isn't that crimson? I was told was only more in like ethnics, not Caucasians. That disorder, right? Like I was told, about my twins have it. Like but it's more like just spots here and there, not like the way that is.
Right, that's something different. That's not this right here. That is the melanocytes in their body are not producing the same throughout their entire body. And the skin ends up in darker and lighter patches throughout the body. But that's not this right here. In this, you have 2 different DNA compete. This DNA is trying to make them light skin. This DNA is trying to make them dark skin. Okay. And they end up just kind of at odds with each other. So they're being triggered in 2 different ways throughout their body. What you're talking about is just blotches that appear on the skin in certain patterns in certain
But
parts.
he called it like crimson. Is there another name for it then?
Crimson.
Or something like that. He was saying that it was only more rare. It's like basically only everything but white people get it.
Yeah. And it's the melanocytes.
It's like,
and because in white folks, the melanocytes,
maybe I'm wrong.
melanocytes are not very active. So it's going to be in those races and skin tones where they have very active melanocytes, the cells that make our skin dark. And that's why you're going to see it in other races rather than Caucasian people. But it is just different melanocytes in different areas are being stimulated when they shouldn't be. And some in other areas are not as stimulated. Is the best way to describe it. But we have all types of issues that happen in our skin. So anyway, that's something that's a little bit different than this. Okay, so that is chimerism, people who have 2 different types of DNA appearing in their bodies. All right, so let's go back and make sure we've got everything that I want y'all to have in your notes. Anatomy is the study of structure. Physiology, the study of functioning. Pathophysiology, how disease affects functioning. We looked at the human genome, and though it's not in red, I'll go on and do it now. 25,000 genes in human DNA. Be able to spell deoxyribonucleic and know that the DNA contains 46 chromosomes. And that humans, since we have 2 of every chromosome, we are bisome. Know the difference between gametic and somatic chromosomes. The gametes are the lettered chromosomes. The somatics are the numbered chromosomes. And know that genetic anomalies can be passed through the gametes, but not through the somatics. So the numbered chromosomes cannot pass disease to your children, like Down syndrome. Know the genetic combinations or gametic combinations. XX is girl, XY is boy. And that the father determines the sex of the child. And there's also a kind of a trick question for you. Which parent can make the X chromosome? So which parent can make the X chromosome?
The boy.
Both, right?
Both. That's why it's a trick question. Only the male can make the Y chromosome, but both parents make the X chromosome. Okay. So XX girl, XY boy, father contributes to determines the sex of the child. Only the male can make the X chromosome or the Y chromosome, but both parents can make the X chromosome. Know that if you're missing a chromosome, that's called monosome, and that the only known human monosome condition is monosome X. Trisomy 21 is the most common trisome condition. Down syndrome. Know the definitions for dominant. Dominant over all others of the same type. And genetic diseases can be passed by just one gene or from one parent. And that recessive requires both parents to pass the disease. The most common congenital disorder is cerebral palsy. And that's it. Okay. So what I'm going to do right now is send all of y'all a email. Anatomy and physiology test review. I'm going to attach well, maybe I'm not going to attach. All right, I don't want to attach that yet. I want to open it first. So let me go and open it. See what it is I'm looking at. All right, I won't send that right now because I need to type it first. So we can discard that. Okay, so I'll send that out this afternoon after I get it typed up, or first thing tomorrow morning, either way. But I do want to now show y'all how we test. All right. The program that we use for testing is called Quizzes. There's an app for it, but you shouldn't need the app. Okay. You can go in and take the test without downloading the app if you want to. But most teachers do use Quizzes here, so having the app on your phone might work out for you. But what that is going to involve is I'm going to send you a link, and we'll walk through the whole thing right now. We just did the class on Intro to Anatomy and Physiology right there. So I'm going to activate that, and I'm going to set it up until Friday, the 31st.
This is a test? All right.
Yes, that's my sister's birthday. Wait a minute. Yeah, the 31st, right there. Yeah, it's my sister's birthday. And I will continue with that. I will share the link. Go back to email. Paste that link in there. Send it to everybody.
I don't think that I'm in the emails. My mom's been forwarding them to me.
Who's your mom? And who is
Jen
that?
Green.
What's your email address?
S Wilborn 413
Yeah,
at gmail.com.
I got something in there for you, but there were two originally, and I didn't know which one to use. Yours was
S Wilborn.
Okay. You had another one too, didn't you?
No, that's my only one.
No, they gave me a list of students, and yours on that list was not S. Wilburn.
I think it might have been my mom's email then.
Something else. So, are you seeing the other one in here somewhere? Because that's why.
Jay Zamora.
Jay Zamora, that's the one that I put in here, right there. So that's your mom's email address, right? Jay Zamora?
Yes.
Okay. Then that's the one I need to take out. That's why she's getting the emails.
Well, she's in there as well because she's in your class.
Okay.
Jen Green.
Okay, so what's your name?
Savannah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think that's where they kind of messed something. All right, so no big deal there. S.
Wilborn.
S. Wilburn.
413. 413.
This wouldn't let me add at Gmail.
Yes.
You had some issues with this one yesterday. I added it and it didn't go through. That's what happened. When I sent out the group email, the S. Wilburn got kicked back to me saying that it wasn't deliverable. Okay. So I went in and took this one out. So let me go ahead and add this group again. Make sure that you're there. Okay, you are there. All right. Go back to my message. 762 and 727. All right. And I'll go in here and paste the actual Quizzes link. I'm going to send this right now so that I can show y'all how that goes in there. Friday, what was that? The 31st. Okay. Now, when I put a due date on something, it means that it's due before class starts that day. So this is not due Friday night. This is due first thing Friday morning. Okay? So you need to get it done no later than Thursday night, actually. But it's due Friday. All right. I'm going to send that, and everybody should get that, including me. And there's mine. All right. If you go into the email that I sent you, click on the link. Here's right there. It asks you to enter your name. Please enter your full name right there. Start. I'm going to ask you to pick one of these. Doesn't matter which one you pick. It's just for boom. So I'll pick that one and start. Which of the following is the study of how disease affects functioning? Pathophysiology. He's having an extra chromosome. The only known human monozone condition.
Number one. Down syndrome.
Down syndrome. I'm
I
listening.
did. I'm wrong.
Chromosomes are called gametic.
That's right.
How many genes are in human DNA? The answer's not here. It's 25,000 or 2,500. I'll take that out. Oh, look. Who's doing it with me?
Genetic.
So, okay, so y'all see how that works. Okay. Go in, click on the link. It takes you right into the test. Take the test one time for a grade. If you take it multiple times, I'm not going to take the maximum grade. I'm going to take the max up to 75. Okay. So for example, if on your first time you score 60, on your second time you score 93, that's your second attempt. The maximum you score on the second attempt is 75. So that's the grade that will be recorded for you. Okay. So if you go in there the first time you score 100, your grade is 100. You score 60 the first time and 93 the second time, your grade is 75, because that 93 is considered a retake. And the highest you score on a retake is 75. So get in there, get it done one time. Now, let's say you score 95 the first time, like you're a perfectionist. I want to go back and do it again. And the second time you score 100, 95 was your first grade. Yeah. So I'll take the first grade, and if the first grade is lower than 75 and redo it, you can pull that grade up to 75. But if you're just redoing it just because you want to, I'll look at that first grade.
It was like perfect timing. You were just.
Christopher, you and me and that microphone, we're going to have it out, son. You got to turn that mic off, man. All right, so anyway, pay attention to ... So now you know how we test. You've got from now until Friday to get that test done. and I will type up a list of, y'all will see what a review is when I send it. You're going to need Microsoft Office to open it, and it will be 25,000 genes in human DNA, 46 chromosomes. It's just a study sheet that'll take you through everything that we were just doing, and then looking on your test. But you see, there was nothing in there that was not on your test. The answers are there, and prepare yourself for it. You want to get that high grade on the first time you take it. So you want to be scoring higher than 75 each time on your first attempt for these. So study them and only do it when you are sure you're ready to go through it. Because what's going to happen is questions are going to start coming at you fast. And you'll see the little badges popping up. Pay attention to those badges too, by the way, because eventually you might get a badge that says this would allow you to eliminate one wrong answer.
And they work, Mr. Mahone.
This will give you double points for the next right answer that you give, and so on. And after you do all that, write that grade down. As soon as you get done, it's going to say you scored 95. So in your notebook, I usually tell students sometimes if you're using like the spiral notebook thing, just go into the cover of that bad boy and write anatomy and physiology 95, gastro test 80, hemo test 92, and so on. Always keep your grades written down like that. And that way you can average your grade anytime you want. Now, the way this is usually going to work out for you is that when you average your grade, how would you average this grade right here? Anybody know?
3 divided by 3.
Add all three of them. 7 and 18 and 8 is 26. And divide by the number that are there. 1, 2, 3. That gives you your test average. Now, the way it works in class is that your homework will either pull your test average up or down. If you do it and you're getting the homework to me, it'll pull your test average up 1 letter grade. So if your test average comes out to be B, you've got the plus the homework, that gives you your A. A B minus the homework puts you at C. So doing the homework pulls you up a letter grade. Not doing the homework pulls you down a letter grade. And yeah, there were a couple of people in class last module who had an A average on their tests, but didn't do the homework. And it brought them down to a B. There were some people in class who had B average on their tests, turned in every homework. Got that A. So always know what your test average is. The reason is I can put up, whether you've turned in the homework or not, I'll be putting up a spreadsheet that says I have your homework for everybody, but I can't put the test grades up in front of people. So always know what your test average is by always writing down your grades, and you can average those at any time. Add them, divide by the number that are there, and give you your test average. 60 to 69 to D, 70 to 79 is a C, 80 to 89 is a B, and 90 or above is a A. So always know where you sit in here in your test average. And then you can estimate pretty easily where your grade's always going to be standing. Do the homework. And when I say do the homework, I don't mean just get through it. There's a saying we have in therapy. Remember, degree in occupational therapy. Saying that we have in therapy is that therapy happens at home. In other words, you come to the appointments, we show you what exercises to do, you go home and you do those. Therapy happens at home. So I show you what exercises to do in the textbook, you do those. That's the learning part. 20% of your learning is going to come from actually doing the homework assignments. So actually do them. Don't just get through them. You won't get homework grades from me. What you'll get is a star. So under gastro homework, star by your name means I have it and you have credit for it. You could bullshit the homework if you wanted to. I do give it cursory glances. I look at it. I look at what's in there. Make sure that the words are matching the chapter, that kind of stuff. But I don't go line for line grading homework. You turn it in, you get the credit for it. So this is where you either learn it or you don't. If you're just bullshitting your way through it, just getting the credit for it, okay. Just know you're not going to have that knowledge when you get to your next classes. This is about you and your learning. It's not about turning it in to me so I can give you a grade for it. It's about me to assigning it to you and you knowing what to do to get in there and be prepared for your further classes down the road. I'll give you credit for doing it. All right, so that's how we're going to proceed grade-wise. The quiz is already activated. The email is already sent. Whenever you get emails from me or any of your teachers, the best thing to do is stick that in a folder and always keep your emails. So you can always go back in there. There was a student I needed to get in touch with last module, and I went back into my, see my class folders down here? These are the class folders for all my students, and the emails are in there. I can go back and find all those old emails I sent. These are me sending emails every morning to this group. And then the group send the stuff back to me. So you should have a folder like that somewhere up in here. You can create a folder anywhere and just put Mr. Mahone's class. Every time I send an email to you, get what you need out of it and drop that email right back into that folder. Because the attachments will still be there too when you drop the email. So like the syllabus that was in today's attachment. As soon as you drop that folder into your, or that email into your folder, the attachment goes with it. So if 2 weeks from now you're going, what was on that syllabus? Oh man, where did I put it? You know, always go back to that original email and download it again. So always keep the emails and the assignments. You can always go back and pick up assignments and dates and what pages were due and things like that. So don't delete emails until you are totally done with that class. Right. All right. So that is, boom. Okay. Somehow she got added to my email list as well. All right. So let me do this while I'm doing it so she doesn't keep getting emails from me. That was Hernandez. Right there, Fernandez. All right. Try to keep that straight. That was all right. Yeah. All right. So anyway, a lot in one day. You may still have some questions, that type of stuff, but we can all just kind of smooth it out as we go. Remember, don't be shy about asking questions. I don't mind questions at all. Matter of fact, I kind of enjoy questions, as long as they're not dumb questions, right? Like, Mr. Mahone, what's the number to 911? So I might have to kick you out of my class. I'm sorry, okay? Not everybody's cut out for healthcare. But y'all know there's no such thing as a dumb question, man. I'd rather you ask it and clear it up. And remember, if there's a question you have, there might be 3 or 4 other people in the class that have the same question. They're just scared to ask. All right, so how many of y'all have books right now? or don't have books, I should say? See
I
one,
don't.
two. Okay. And this message is
I have
for
a book.
you. If you haven't picked up your book, try to pick it up before 4:30 today, because we will be into the textbook and the homework pages and things like that starting tomorrow. So if
Are
you,
they in today?
are they what?
Are they in today? Because I was told they wouldn't be in until Tuesday.
The message she just handed me. Please ask students to pick up their book if they haven't yet, for between 1 and 4:30 today. So they are. I'd hate to have you drive all the way out here and they're not, but so I'm assuming that she wouldn't gave me that. So anyway.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. So yeah, she can pick those up before 4:30 today. The building closes at 4:30. Well, not the building, but the registrar and all that closes at 4:30. So try to get that picked up today. No major issue if you don't. I mean, I want y'all out there like speed racer and trying to get over here. If there's just a conflict with you picking it up today, it'd be best to have it tomorrow, but it's not mandatory. So try to get it today if you can. All right. So I'm trying to stick true to my idea of if you miss a day, you miss a lot. Don't attempt the test until you get the review from me. I'll be sending that out today. So be looking for that in the mail. And then you can attempt your test afterwards. You folks that went on already and started by accident or whatever, you can continue with that, but I will not pay attention to the attempts on this one because I saw a couple people did get in there and start that. So if you go in again, it's going to show second attempt. So don't be too concerned about that. I will take your highest grade for this one, just this test. So whatever you score on your highest grade, regardless of the attempt, that's the grade that I'll record. I don't want to get into trying to figure out who's been in there already and that type of stuff. So don't attempt it until I send you the review today, this afternoon, and then you have until Friday to get it done. So what time does class start tomorrow morning?
8 o'clock.
8 o'clock. All right. Everybody's in today, so I'm assuming that nobody had issues getting in this morning. If you do, and there's a problem with tomorrow's email, what if you click on tomorrow's email and it doesn't bring you into the class? What can you do?
Click on the one today.
Use today's email.
Use the one from yesterday.
It's the same every day. So if there's a problem with tomorrow's email, the one from today will get you in there, or one from yesterday will get you in there. So that being said, are there any questions before we call it a day? Yes, Jen.
You didn't delete my email, did you? Days Zamora 285.
Did I?
Because my daughter's Savannah Wilborn, and we're both taking your class.
See, you should tell her don't be running her mouth about you. That's what my wife. That's what my mom. That's what my wife would have said. I can speak for myself. You don't be have to talk about it. Let me make sure.
Well, because you didn't have her email. You were sending me everything, but not her. I just want to make sure I didn't get deleted. Okay, I'm right there.
Days more. Okay.
Mr. Mahone, you were at SCI too, right?
Yes, I was. Who was that?
Jen Green.
Yes, I was at Southern Careers.
I took medical assistant over there for a little bit with you.
Did you really?
Mm-hmm.
I was teaching medical assistant back then over there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't like Southern Careers very much.
Me neither.
I paid for a little while and then just got on out of there. All right. Any other questions? All right. Tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. Again, try to open that PowerPoint today. If you can't open it, we'll talk about it a little bit more tomorrow. There'll be another PowerPoint coming your way for tomorrow's class. That won't be sent out until in the morning, but in a little while in this afternoon, I'll send out the review for Friday's test. All right, any questions anymore? All right, we'll see y'all tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock.
Bye, sir. Thank you.